DLC is a very common occurrence within the video game industry, and Fire Emblem is no stranger to the concept, dating back to the DS era with extra weapons and chapters. Over the years, the amount of content available has been expanded and refined with each subsequent title, and come THREE-Houses, these additional bonuses manifested as CinderedShadows, a brand new campaign that ties into the main story with various quality of life updates and includes its own branch of students, the Ashen Wolves. Lurking within the abyss of Garrick Mark, these miscreants are some of the strangest pupils to have been omitted to the monastery, with all of them having hit rock bottom at some point in their lives and doing what they can to climb their way out of the darkness, all of which are such fantastic characters that I would personally designate them to the A tier bracket at minimum, and have been extremely potent units when it comes to defending their territory. I figured it was time to determine where they fit within the Fire Emblem hierarchy. So join me everyone, as it's time to explore the underbelly of Fodlan and verify just how much capital the expansion pass was worth, as I count down my top 4 Ashen Wolves from Fire Emblem THREE-Houses. For those of you who are new to this channel and are unfamiliar with the format, this entire list is purely opinion based, specifically regarding supports and characterization, so feel free to disagree, but like I mentioned before, each of the Ashen Wolves are incredible and within the higher tier brackets of the entire cast. I will also be breaking down their performance in relation to their unique attributes and overall effectiveness, with my own personal input concerning what classes, skills, and so on I feel works best for each student. But before we begin, more than 50% of you watching aren't subscribed, so I'd very much appreciate it if you click that like and subscribe button and followed me on Twitch too, where I stream daily. Also, while they do have their own campaign to introduce themselves, barring Yuri, the majority of characterization is featured through their supports, so I won't cover CinderedShadows too much, but spoiler warning regardless, as well as THREE-Houses as a whole, which I know to some may sound redundant, but you'll be surprised how long it takes to complete this game in full, especially when the idea of playing Silver Snow is about as appealing as having to sit through the majority of E3 2021. Thank the Lord for Nintendo, I was worried I was going to die of boredom. Also, if you're curious as to why this segment wasn't in live action, well, my current place of living is going through some renovations at the moment, so it's not exactly the ideal time to set up a shoot. And with all that cleared up, let us submerge ourselves into the depths of Garrick Mark and witness what it is like to live in a world of darkness. Though considering the shit some of the students have gone through, even when raised within the more powerful political standings, suddenly this game's equivalent of the slums is starting to look like the ideal place for a picnic. Before we disclose the Ashen Wolves, there's 2 characters who were included in the additional updates, those being the iconic merchant Anna and the Death Knight himself Yuritsa. While they're not exclusive to CinderedShadows, and I'm not going to rank them as such, I figured they're worth bringing mention to since they add more substance to the game and can be very enjoyable to deploy. More so Yuritsa since, good lord, I don't know who at Intelligent Systems you swindled Anna, but THREE-Houses fucking hates you! By now, we're all familiar with the Traveling Charlatan, and her playable appearance in both Awakening and Fate has demonstrated that she's a very fun and clever lady if a bit of a minx, and having such a hard-on for money, she makes Scrooge McDuck look like a Samaritan. Well, THREE-Houses decided to come down hard on Anna's interest rate by not granting her a single support. Yep, not even Byleth can chat her up, which is so stupid when taking into account that she has her own paralogue and even appears throughout a select number of conversations, so being unable to interact with the party at large is just baffling to say the least. Now I can understand if they were to limit Anna's supports, since she only has 4 at max in Awakening, but none at all is a real shame, bearing in mind she's established as a very experienced and money-driven woman. So imagine how a conversation between her and the likes of Dorothea and Balthus would go, considering it's the root of their problems, or teaming up with Yuri or Constance for a big enterprise scheme. The lack of acknowledgement concerning Anna's existence is a bummer, but at the very least she's fun to use, right? Right? Well, once again, THREE-Houses stabs Anna in the back so brutally, Valve will soon be filing for copyright, as the secret seller I found to be so painfully mediocre and one of the most underwhelming allies within the barracks. Anna is available from recruitment from Chapter 3 onwards, but by this point her stats aren't too impressive, with a base stat total of 101, and only speed and luck in the double digits barring HP, though she's overall pretty balanced minus defense. Regarding growths, Anna is honestly well spread out, as most values range between 30 to 45%, making for a reliable build with caps that are just as evenly distributed. Anna constitutes adequate magical knowledge, with Reason having only 3 spells, though Meteor is a highlight, and Faith being more utility based with Rescue and Ward. Having dabbled in the merchant business for so long, Anna is familiar with all kinds of weaponry, for sword, axe, bow and faith are her areas of expertise, while she finds Reason and Authority to be a poor investment, along with a budding talent in riding, which will unlock paths just like little Bernie Bear. The abilities she comes packaged with include 4 prowess skills and business prosperity, which grants the user plus 5 luck, in addition to 2 combat arts and the ability to learn 5 exclusive attacks, Hex and Soul Blade specifically being what I deem to be her strongest and sadly only noteworthy assets. If she does decide to invest in Authority, then Rally Luck and Battalion Advantage will be hers, though surprisingly, Anna has purchased her own Crest of Earnest that can prevent the enemy from demanding a refund, and I perceive Anna to act as a jack of all trades unit that sounds good on paper. However, her lack of outstanding values or aptitudes prevents her from contributing much to the war effort. Now, to be fair, balanced builds are more than viable if the unit in question has abilities that complement their decimals. Just look at Yuri, Edelgard, Sylvain and Byleth. However, Anna's biggest problem is that everything she can do, many others can do substantially better. Plus, her damage output on both ends is so underwhelming that even with a hefty advantage, she'll barely seal the deal. Unlike most pre-timed units, Anna debuts as an intermediate class, Myrmidon specifically, and honestly, sticking with swords is my personal recommendation due to her combat arts and high speed, with Assassin also working out very well, and Trickster calling back to her Awakening roots minus actually being good. Mortals of Art doesn't offer too many benefits, but if bows are what you favour, then Sniper should be easy, and if you're willing to put in the hours, then Bow Knight is rather useful too. And in regards to axes, for the love of God, please go Brigand, and sticking with the likes of Warrior may actually allow Anna to do some serious damage. Plus Great Knight and by extension armors are a possible configuration. This may take some time, but Wyvern Lord and Falcon Knight are a welcome choice, with Brawling being acceptable thanks to a high speed. Thus War Cleric is a certification I would highly recommend in this context, and Faith in general is a possible path to tread, though Holy Knight feels useless since none of Anna's Faith magic deals damage barring Nosferatu. On the subject of her skill set, since Anna regularly lacks power, the appropriate blow and fair skills are ideal, and due to this capitalist being so nimble, abilities that make use of said velocity can give her the extra push such as Desperation. But honestly, I claim everything else to be just okay. Don't misunderstand me, you can certainly make use of Provice, Aegis, the Defiant, Breaker and Seal skills. However, I protest that nothing about Anna warrants the necessity of these perks, with the early game being the only time I noticed her to shine due to the lower competition and power ceiling. To summarize, Anna is painfully mediocre, and if someone were to argue she's the worst unit in the game, I wouldn't have much room to disagree, and witnessing her be reduced to barely a footnote is just painful. Good thing she wasn't a standalone character instead of being part of the package, as paying for her would have been a bigger waste of money than when the Switch Online expansion pass first dropped, and you wonder why emulation runs so rampant, Nintendo! Thankfully, Yuritsa avoided Anna's pitfalls, as from the very start there was something intriguing about this instructor, given his actions across all routes. So finally being able to hear his side of the story revealed him to be one of the most bizarre but also saddest entities in the game, which given the repertoire is quite the achievement. Before once again proving that Garrick Mark's hiring policy is utter shit, Yuritsa was born to House Bartels and is the half-brother of Mercedes, and though growing up within that congregation was utter hell, his sister and stepmother kept the light in his heart alive, so once they left, everything took a turn for the worst, resulting in the boy birthing an additional persona known as the Death Knight, who quickly became one of the fiercest warriors on the continent and only seeks to satiate his bloodlust. Due to the magnitude of what he's endured, Yuritsa gives off a very cold and disturbing vibe, limiting its interactions as much as possible, and thus is rather easy to overlook, since outside of Crimson Flower, or unless Mercedes' paralogue is complete, he's otherwise forgotten come time skip. once I decided to investigate this sociopath. It's really sad but also somewhat heartwarming to see what comes of Jeritza, as himself and Bernadetta can barely stomach the presence of others, allowing the pair to somewhat relate to each other. Plus, I like seeing Bernie be far more active when conversing with him, and since Jeritza craves battle, Byleth is the only person he feels can liberate him. And though it's pretty creepy in concept, I have to admire how through the Professor, Jeritza finds a reason to live after the war is done. Plus, through their exchanges, we bear witness to Jeritza's human side, backstory, and personal struggles he's dealing with. Constance and Mercedes are whom he truly flourishes among, as Miss Nouvelle doesn't hesitate to confront his isolated attitude as an attempt to rekindle their friendship, and because she's so bold, Constance is able to get through to him, with the A support exhibiting shades of the boy he once was, igniting the hope that they may bring back the blissful times of years gone by. Of course, my favourite interaction features his sister, starting out as rather sweet while acknowledging the difficult history they share, yet despite his reluctance, Jeritza enjoys her company because who wouldn't? The conversation takes a very dark turn as we see the full extent of the Death Knight persona and its origins, revealing that Jeritza murders his father to protect his sister, but Mercedes blames herself for causing Emil to lose his soul. Wishing to stay by his side, death be damned. And I really love how the game doesn't ignore the fact that Jeritza is a broken man, yet there is still hope and happiness for him, and that you should never give up on others even when they're at their lowest, especially since you'll want this Reaper as an ally to collect the souls of the enemy. By now, we all know the memes regarding Lysithea and her dark spikes, but once Byleth makes it back to the monastery, I wouldn't be surprised if he mistook Jeritza for Percival. He's so busted! In retrospect, it's no wonder he became an instructor, as Emil's numbers are fantastic, garnering a stat total of 209 with huge amounts of HP, strength, speed and defense, with decent magic and res to boot. However, his skill and luck are lacking along with charm, so he may have hit rate problems, especially when gambits are involved. As if being an uber pre-promote wasn't enough, Mercedes' little brother has excellent growth potential too, averaging around 40 to 50%, having the tied second highest speed growth, while res and charm only drop as far as 25%, though his caps are overall average. But fear not, as Jeritza has his own unique class, being the self-proclaimed Death Knight, which is essentially Dark Knight but exchanges Tome Fair for Lance Fair while still being able to utilize magic. On that note, Jeritza's reason pool is not too shabby, having powerful thunder attacks plus death, however his faith list is a basic bitch, which makes sense considering it's one of his weaker learning fields, along with authority. But thankfully, the man is skilled with swords, lances, brawling and riding, with a budding talent in flying that'll grant darting blow, and should be obtained ASAP. His weapon ranks are a sight to behold, as sword and lances are A and A+ respectively, with a C+ in brawling and axes, D in bows and reason, and A in riding, and even though his authority is weak, it starts at B rank and makes for a solid investment. Unsurprisingly, Jeritza pertains an entire garrison of extras, including 7 power skills, Mastermind, Dex +4, 3 battalion and 2 breaker abilities, plus his own murderous intent, which grants hit +20 if Jeritza initiates. If that's not enough overkill, the man wields 14 combat arts, 5 of which are exclusive and unlocked from the get-go, and by mastering his persona, Jeritza can obtain counterattack. Were the people behind Heroes present when designing this Harbinger? Because he is absolutely ridiculous! Naturally, sticking to his default class is a more than viable option, but thanks to his diverse grading, he's got no shortage of choices, though I lean more towards lance-based affiliations, Dark Knight and Paladin in particular. Plus, Bone Knight is fine too, though Holy Knight I would not recommend. Sword occupations are great, and heck, Mortal Savant can make him a brilliant hybrid offense unit, and thanks to his budding talent in flying, while it'll be quite the grind, going Rivenlord will reap huge benefits. His decent axe and brawling should make War Master and everything leading up to that a breeze, while bow classes should offset his accuracy conundrum, and armor isn't too shabby either, though when magic is involved, I lean towards anything regarding reason while actively avoiding faith. And as far as skills are concerned, I'd suggest unlocking Darting Blow, Counterattack, and Sword/Lance Crit +10 for universal purposes, plus the appropriate Blow and Fair abilities. When getting a bit more specific, since his HP is so high, threshold-related perks can be useful, and hit +20 should offset his low luck and dex, plus Life Taker acts as a nice way for Jeritza to be truly independent, and overall, it's easy to see why he's feared throughout Fodlan, with the man behind the monster making for one of the more moving and surreal members of the army and their greatest trump card no matter the encounter. In fact, I'm sure this is what the finale of Crimson Flower looks like through the eyes of the enemy. Happy. Just happy. Now we're finally assessing the Ashen Wolves, and figures that the participation award would go to the gloomiest member of the team. But then again, when you've been kidnapped, tortured, mutilated and lied to, I can't fault her for finding life to be about as fun as playing Smash Ultimate online. Happy's time on this planet has molded her into a very down-to-earth woman who actively challenges others' ways of thinking, causing significant character growth, plus she's not above the occasional shenanigans, and makes for a very unique pupil who balances light-hearted fun with heartbreaking torment expertly, not to mention one of the more impressive magic users that's far more fearsome than the monsters which swarm her. Happy's appearance and complexion distinguishes herself among the Ashen Wolves, as it looks like she hasn't slept in over a week and is so done with life she could substitute for Squidward. In retrospect, it shouldn't come as a shock, given that Happy grew up in a very isolated part of Fodlan and only wished to see more of the world, and her curiosity caused the poor girl to be kidnapped by Titzilla over here and experimented on to the point where she gained the ability to rally monsters to her position if she so much as sighs. So yeah, no pressure honey. Even after she was freed, the Knights of Zero simply shoved her into the abyss, and ever since, Happy holds a massive grudge towards their ilk and is a very dour person, always being blunt, nonchalant and having no filter when it comes to confrontation, especially if the Knights are involved. Though she's hardly a saint, not only is her predicament very sympathetic and the burden she carries immense, Happy's neither hostile or mean-spirited, as she's always looking out for others not only by keeping her distance, but offering up what advice she can to steer them down the right path. Plus there are times where she can be legitimately funny, like during her support with Constance when she tries talking with her mouth full and sounds like she's starring in Banjo-Kazooie. Concerning Happy's supports, I observed most of them to involve significant character progression, as dining with Constance acts as a good way to establish their friendship and embrace both aspects of high and low society. When talking to Dimitri, they're able to uncover the truth behind Happy's kidnapper and what went down with the king's stepmother, along with opposing Ash's perception of knights, yet his stories are able to help Happy view the concept in a more favourable light. Adding to this, Byleth's efforts ensure Happy's good intentions allow her to finally be at ease around the professor, with Balthus going down a similar if somewhat silly route, while Yuri learns that Happy is very skilled at stargazing and encourages her to seek out her parents. Even Linhardt takes an interest in her abilities and hopes to put them to good use, showing that while Happy has suffered greatly, the experience strengthened both her spirit and soul, and by extension her body, as while Happy might be cursed to call monsters to her position, she's the real menace when magic is involved. Happy joins with a base stat total of 83, being overall solid, the magic and dex are where she thrives, while luck and defense are rather sullen, with her growths following the same format, capping at 45% and dropping to 15% at the lowest. Therefore, I'd assess her to be generally balanced if a little frail. Happy's caps aren't outstanding, but do allow her to be at least somewhat standard in most situations barring magic-based alignments, for her arcane proficiency extends to her spell pool, with access to many powerful recent attacks as well as physic and warp utility. Thankfully, when she debuts, both Miasma and Swarm are already available thanks to a prevailing recent field, along with riding and flying, though brawling, armor and authority are aspects she loathes. Happy's budding talent in axes I don't find very exceptional, as all she gains is exhaustive strike, but if you're going for a pure physical build or intend on making use of the bolt axe, then knock yourself out. While she may not care for authority, focusing on it can allow her to gain rally dex and battalion wrath, but the biggest nail in the coffin is how Happy has no exclusive combat arts, which in the words of Agnes is unacceptable! For the lack of Mystic Blow, Hexblade, Frozen Lance, or even Lightning Axe is a huge missed opportunity. Thankfully, she has 2 aces up her sleeve with the Crest of Timotheus that occasionally conserves face spell munitions, as well as her very own monstrous appeal that allows Happy to deal super effective damage against all monster enemies, and given how frequently they appear in the paralogs, she's definitely worth bringing along to put them in their place. Happy begins her years at the Academy as a commoner, and her DLC class is Valkyrie, granting the user additional black and dark magic range, along with Uncanny Blow for even more accuracy. When treading unfamiliar territory, Happy leans towards magic at all times, and most recent classes favour her substantially, with Warlock, Dark Flyer and Dark Knight being very suited to Happy's build, and while she doesn't excel in Faith, her crest and spells make it a subject that should not go ignored, as Grimoire and Holy Knight are also excellent choices, with both Mortal Savant and Trickster acting as solid stand-ins. War Cleric is the last of the selection I would make concerning magic, but as far as physicality is concerned, Happy's proficiency in riding and flying alongside her D rank in lances and budding talent in axes will make Wyvern Lord, Falcon Knight and Paladin excellent choices. Great Knight can work, though given her lack of armor it's not an option I would recommend, and Bow Knight isn't bad either, with the remaining selection being okay at best but not outright awful, minus maybe Armor Knight, which I think was intentional. Obtaining the appropriate fare and blow skills are a given, plus any class that offers additional magic ammo. In fact, since her res isn't too shabby, Transmute can go a long way. Personally, I feel there aren't too many attributes that are absolutely essential, so honestly, just pick your poison. And to summarize, Happy to me is by no means a consistent juggernaut, but thanks to a magical inventory, she's able to function proficiently as any sort of enchantress. Plus, though Happy may not be the most splendiferous female, I appreciate that instead of wallowing in her pity, she shifts her focus towards ensuring others avoid what she's endured, and not want to shy away from goofing around every now and then. Plus, the nicknames she assigns everyone are really cute, and makes me wonder what she would have called the remainder of the cast.
What's new, Chatterbox? Another all-nighter, Eddie? Don't forget your din-dins, Dee. Still hungry, Sugar Plum? Are you finished, Fernando? You should lighten up, Doo-Doo. Is your brother always like this, Flounder? Love your lipstick, Dodo. You never give up, do you, Goldilocks? Don't even bother. I'm not in the mood, Sleazer. I wasn't aware you came from Dagda-Shammy. It's okay. I know how you feel, Snow White. Bitch.
Balthus von Albrecht. While the Abyss has its fair share of upstanding citizens, much of the underbelly of Fodlan consists of lowlifes and scoundrels. Balthus, at a glance, seems to fit the bill given his money troubles and lack of subtlety when it comes to asserting his dominance. And to be fair, with abs like that, he can assert himself all over me.
Yeah.
Though he may come across as boorish, the King of Grappling really threw me for a loop by turning out to be one of the smartest and selfless members of the Academy, really going out of his way to confer life advice to his peers, and more than happy to put himself in harm's way for their sake. And it's a good thing he hit so hard as to never be in any actual danger. It's just a shame the man can't simply punch away his money problems, because at the end of the day, no one wins when taxes are involved.
137 million?
Yes, and if I don't pay up, I'll go to jail for tax evasion. I'm crazy enough to take on Batman, but the IRS, no, thank you.
Unlike most of the students at Garrick Mark, Balthus is a legal adult right from the start, and it's clear that he's not exactly the most responsible male, having procured a massive debt from several sources and preferring to spend his days drinking, eating, and fighting while quickly moving on to the next thing before reality starts to catch up. Because of his carefree attitude, Balthus comes off as a very self-absorbed and boisterous young man, always looking to have a good time and flex both his ego and muscles while flaunting his devilish charms. But once I stripped back the facade, it was amazing to spectate what Balthus has been through and just how heroic he is, as due to being born with an extremely rare crest, significant discourse occurs within his household, and for the sake of his mother and stepbrother, he abandoned his duties and became the target of many assassins in order to keep his loved ones safe. While certainly obtuse, I respect that Balthus's actions prevent further internal conflict, and during his support, while a bit thick-headed and no stranger to scrounging for money, much of his interactions are spent teaching his underclassmen some very important life lessons, as well as demonstrating that Balthus has vast amounts of experience and history to share. For when engaged with both Byleth and Claude, much of the man's past is revealed, as well as helping them to understand that we can't control everything and should just go with the flow from time to time. Himself and Hilda are childhood friends, and it's nice to see that Holst is a common ground for them to center their relationship on, and it turns out Lysiphia's family aided Balthus during his darkest hour, and he plans to be there for them once they renounce their nobility. It really amazes me to see this rascal become an entirely different person once the gloves come off, and display that he is equal parts deep as he is comical, though you won't be laughing once he decides to throw down. Balthus may put on a facade when it comes to conversation, but the moment a fight breaks out, his muscles are 100% genuine, for the king of grappling strolls up to class with a base stat total of 81, having the highest HP, strength and defense of the group, as well as decent speed. However, everything else is unimpressive, though rest assured his growth spread picks up the pace, with high strength and HP while being rather balanced in other areas. Caps aren't so kind, not counting his favoured values, which I discern to permit Balthus to hit very hard and can take a decent amount of damage, but will have trouble landing blows with some of the more clunky ornaments. The dude's title and personal skill grant him 6 extra points in strength and defense when his HP is 50% or lower, allowing for a lot of risk versus reward scenarios, while his crest of Chevalier offers up the chance to restore 30% of the damage dealt with combat arts that can help to save him in a pinch. Figures that this vagabond would favour fists and axes, but he's also no slouch regarding faith, swords and armour, though lances, bows and flying are where Lady Luck abandons him once again, and his budding talent Black Magic Crit plus 10 I don't find terrible given his magic growth and spell pool, but not a priority to unlock. Balthus can obtain 5 combat arts, with Draining Blow when combined with his crest potentially becoming a full restore, and Mighty Blow taking on the role of a Falcon Punch. And heck, with some authority investment, Rally Strength and Battalion Desperation will be his in no time. When Balthus makes his presence known, he too is a noble with 4 power skills and 2 combat arts, with his special class being War Monk or Cleric for females, which plays into his role of being a high damage unit with some extra utility, granting him Fist Fair, the ability to use magic, as well as Brawl Avoid when mastered, which complements his hero's relic the Vajra Mushti beautifully, and yes, they're as powerful as they look, and highly accurate to boot, while additionally pertaining the Art Eviscerate, which targets the foe's lower defense stat value and ensures that Balthus will pummel them to a bloody pulp. Concerning the other classes, going Brigand and by extension War Master is a sound plan, and Grappler I reckon to be okay, since Magic Void is cool but not essential. The likes of Warrior are pretty good considering Wrath and his personal skill, however Wyvern Lord doesn't work out too well for Balthus as the result of his lack of flying and lance expertise. Plus, he can't put up fisticuffs when mounted. This extends to the likes of Great Knight and Paladin, though Fortress Knight I claim to be not too bad, and thankfully despite his contempt for bows, many sword-based classes can offset his poor hit rates, so the likes of Hero and Swordmaster aren't too shabby, and if need be, magic professions have potential, though I would defo focus on being a double offense class like Mortal Savant or Trickster. Skills that this roughneck favours I noticed to be robust, as thanks to his personal ability and crest, it's very easy for Balthus to specialise in low HP gambles or self-sustainment tactics. Personally, I suggest the former, as Wrath, Vantage and the Defiant skills work for super offense, while Life Taker, Renewal and Brawl Avoid suits a more defensive style. Additionally, I would recommend obtaining skills that increase Balthus' hit rate and avoid dex-related abilities. So generally speaking, Balthus I summarize to be a strong attacking unit and better than average tank, with the occasional support efficiency, but some of the more useful alignments will be a struggle to obtain, though at the very least he's never going to be outright awful, and though he may not make the best long-term decisions, I revere just how much courage and insight stems from this cordial outlaw, especially in his post-timeskip form. Sure, Balthus was always ripped, but Jesus Christ did he bulk up over the course of 5 years. I wasn't aware the dude learned how to become an Ascended Saiyan during that downtime. Yuri Leclerc. It's hardly surprising that the leader of the Ashen Wolves would find himself so high within the rankings. After all, you don't become the head of an underground information network and procure favors from many noble houses without significant skill, wit, and dashing good looks, all of which Yuri has in spades. As while not the most open individual, there's something intoxicating about the way this man carries himself, and is one of the most complex backstories in the game, which crafts such a diverse and layered member of the army, always bringing something unique to the conversation, and is just so charming. Plus, it helps that Yuri's more than capable of getting the job done as a purely solo combatant. Then again, when you look this good, it's hard for the enemy to stay focused on trying to kill you. Give it time and soon he'll create his own host club within Garrick Mark, at which point the intro to Three Houses will go something like this.
Kiss, kiss, Fodlan. Hey, hey, hey.
Being the poster boy for the expansion pass, Yuri's position as top dog within the Abyss is the result of enough life experience to last an eternity, as from a young age the boy has survived a pandemic thanks to the same person who taught him to read and write, was adopted by a noble, hired as a child assassin, beaten half to death, has ties to various nobles and organizations, enrolled and got expelled from Garrick Mark, and now finds himself ruling over the Abyss, and was a key player in Alfred's plan to revive Citri by betraying his friends, though thankfully he learned the error of his ways by the end, so no hard feelings, right?
Get that motherfucker!
Due to his station and history, Yuri is a rather secretive man and not the easiest person to trust, as he's always prepared for just about everything and won't hesitate to get his hands dirty if it means achieving his goals. I swear, if he ever dyed his hair white, we could submit CinderedShadows as a light-hearted chapter of Berserk. This devilish rogue may come off as a shady scumbag, but Yuri's goals are very pure, as his support with Byleth discloses the fact that it's thanks to being cured by the old man that inspired Yuri to do what he can to save others and always remember the dead. Bernadetta is finally able to put her mind at ease after learning that Yuri was her first friend, and despite what happened between them, knowing that this man made her life happier at the expense of his own well-being is super sweet. And even when it comes to more lighthearted stuff, each interaction is so moving, with himself and Dorothea reflecting on why singing causes them pain, but they use it as a way to share their love and bring joy to others. Even the way he indulges Ingrid is very wholesome, and they've got wonderful chemistry together revolving around their backstory and little quirks. His dialogue with the remaining wolves I noticed to cause Yuri to learn a multitude of valuable lessons, and demonstrate that they are just as important to the Abyss as himself, and I appreciate how the man's relations are so miscellaneous and warrant a very genuine aura that comes from within. Though the one thing he's not shy about is his ability to silence those who stand against him. When you've got the king of grappling and two of the most gifted mages in Fodlan as your underlings, it's no surprise that Yuri is potentially one of the best units in the game, making quite the entrance with a base stat total of 92, which is the highest of all the Ashen Wolves, having the best speed, luck and charm with solid remainders across the board. Yuri also has fabulous growth spread, averaging around 40% give or take, with the highest speed growth of 65%, plus his caps follow a similar distribution with a whopping 92 in his ideal field, allowing Yuri to be extremely versatile much like Manuela and Edelgard, though with greater difficulty regarding class certification. Fittingly so, Yuri's magic pool is very impressive, with a nice balance of power and utility, while favouring faith and reason, along with sword and authority, though lance, axe, riding and flying are so last season. But he's also procured a budding talent in bows, which allows access to Deadeye, along with learning 2 additional combat arts, including Windsweep and Finesse Blade. Yuri can also garner battalion advantage and model leader, plus a personal skill that grants him an attack boost when having a one-on-one with
The enemy!
provided no allies are nearby. Plus his Crest of Albin can prevent his foes from counter-attacking, and the accompanying hero's relic, the Fetters of Dromi, grants Yuri additional movement, the Canto ability, as well as both Aegis and Pervice combined into one. So our question was, what is a balanced item in Fire Emblem THREE: And you have answered with the Fetters of Dromi. Our survey says this thing. I've witnessed the turn Yuri into a one-man army regarding longevity, and while Commoner acts as Yuri's default class, Trickster is the special alignment he acquired, permitting Yuri to balance offense, defense, and support, with the ability Stealth granting him supplementary freedom to go about his business, and Duelist Blow making him harder to hit than Petra during the assault on Enbar. Even if Trickster isn't your forte, Yuri is more than happy to prevail as a sword or magic based class, though personally, I feel a mixed attacker to be his ideal designation, and thus Mortal Savant is a smashing choice. But barring that, War Monk, Swordbuster, Dark Bishop or Warlock and Assassin are great picks too, plus thanks to his budding talent in bows, Sniper's also on the table. What's rather unfortunate is that the likes of Bow, Dark and Holy Knight will be difficult to unlock, and Witherlord is a pipe dream much to my dismay. In fact, mounted classes as a whole should generally be avoided, which sucks, but with his relic Yuri can act as a pseudo-rider. Heck, even Dancer Yuri is a solid choice, as not only can he rock that outfit so wonderfully, but also Sword of Void will essentially turn him into a phantom. When speaking from experience, while the investment will vary, there's no one class I feel Yuri can't prevail at except maybe the armor affiliation, because honey, it does nothing for his waistline. Given his exceptional versatility, Yuri can make use of just about every skill in the book, but since his relic already boosts his defensive properties, I would personally focus on maximizing Yuri's DPS or utility with the likes of the Blow and Fair skills, lethality, increased hit rates, etc. And in summary, Yuri not only has great strengths and plenty of assets to fall back on, but his time on this earth has led him to experience so much and never fails to intrigue and entice me at every turn. Let's just hope he never gets his hands on Behelit, otherwise Edelgard will be the least of Fodlan's problems. Constance von Nouvelle. Having the head of House Nouvelle rise to the top of the pecking order feels incredibly fitting, for her ladyship has cemented herself as my favourite of the Ashen Wolves, as no woman barring Edelgard is as driven and resolute as this fallen noble, and the way she conducts herself like she's the brightest star in the universe, while also dealing with her own demons, makes her one of the most radiant, inspiring and wondrous heroines to grace the Fire Emblem universe. Plus her magic constitutes a sheer destructiveness rivaling even Lysithea, which further proves her magnificence. Honestly, it's impossible for me not to love Constance, and I think it's a crime that herself and Larachelle have not had a harmonic unit in Heroes yet, as their peculiar escapades would cause so much chaos Laurent's medallion would explode if they touched it. At a glance, you'd assume Constance is from the most pristine of noble backgrounds, giving her stunning appearance and outstanding mannerisms. And you'd be half right, as yes, she is of noble birth, but her estate remains in ruins, as House Nouvelle was destroyed during the war between the Empire, Dagda, and Brigid. During the attack, Constance lost everything. Her home, her family, and part of her soul, for sunlight causes her to recollect that tragic incident and turn this once proud and vigorous woman into a subservient husk that thinks so little of herself she could fill in for Corona during the filler episodes of Soul Eater. Constance may have lost much, but this aristocrat will not be deterred, and seeks to restore House Nouvelle to its former glory through her magical innovations. And it's this resolve despite the hurdles she faces that really speaks to me and is what I love most about her. I'll admit that Constance can be somewhat overbearing, and when she's feeling down it gets downright uncomfortable to witness such self-deprecation. But her regular attitude is never intended to bring misfortune, and it cracks me up to witness how in her own world she is. Plus, even when she's feeling awful, her resolve shines through, and she'll defend others when pitted against the greatest of adversity, such as during her support with Balthus. On that note, Constance has a wonderful assortment of dialogue, as she makes Byleth her test subject, and the professor ends up being the one to motivate her liege to never give up. And when conversing with the Emperor, Edelgard pushes Constance to better herself with more effective magical application, causing the two to connect on a personal level, with their goals working to complement and inspire one another. Moving on from that, she has ties to Mercedes and Jeritza, and the love between all of them shines through in the hopes of being able to bring back the same happiness they all experienced as children. Plus, she's quick to put Ferdinand in his place and cause the upstart to reflect on his behaviour, with both parties realising that together they can strive for even greater heights. And getting a bit sentimental here, Constance's tenacity and heroism helps to encourage myself when it comes to pushing forward no matter how hard things become, as I know that we've all had moments where it feels like the universe is actively against us. Many times, whether it be making videos, creating animations, streaming, and other aspects of life regarding work, relationships, money, and my own personal growth, I felt like giving up. But Miss Nouvelle makes it clear that life will not stay still while you wallow. You must endeavor and achieve what you set out to do, never losing yourself or the dreams you hold dear. Sure, there's going to be moments where you are low, need time to recover and potentially regress a bit, but as long as you never give up and keep coming back stronger, nothing can stop you from building the life you desire. And thanks to the power of Constance's spirit and mana, there's nothing that can stand in her way. House Nouvelle was renowned for their unparalleled magical abilities, and it's reassuring to know that Constance keeps the tradition going, as her holiness commences with a stat total of 73, having excellent magic but poor numbers everywhere minus decent speed and skill. She has the lowest base stat total of the Ashen Wolves, and her growths are very lopsided, sharing the joint highest magic growth with Lysithea, but everything else is 35% and lower, with luck and defense being downright embarrassing. Her caps fare a little better, and in my books, conditions her to become an arcane powerhouse similar to Miss Ordelia, being capable of amazing burst damage and potentially one-shot units even towards the endgame, with a spell list consisting of some very powerful attacks, such as Abraxas, Agnia's Arrow, and Bolting. Constance pertains the Crest of Noah, which will reserve her recent ammo pool and is perfect for her build. Plus, with the right classes, she can spam her witchcraft as if it were a sticky bomb launcher. As expected, she begins with a high reason rank and excels in said studies, along with swords, authority, and flying, though axe and armor are beneath her esteem. Her neutral faith proficiency is a bummer, but defo worth capitalizing on, and she can command some very powerful battalions, though what intrigues me the most is her budding talent in brawling, which unlocks Mystic Blow, a magic-based attack that will allow Constance to give her foes a dash good walloping, especially if she brandishes the Aura Knuckles. Plus, her remaining combat arts are both Soul and Hexblade, which are excellent, and further add to her insane attack power. Constance can also support her allies with rally magic, and her personal skill grants her a small boost depending on the location, signing in as a noble with 3 prowess skills and her special class the Dark Flyer, which functions as a great boon concerning mobility purposes and comes packaged with Black Tome Fair. Transmute can work with Constance, but isn't something I would rely on, and if she sticks to being airborne, then Pegasus Knight is a decent choice to unlock Darting Blow and give her a much needed speed boost, and going Falcon Knight is ideal if you plan to spam her sword arts without mercy. Magic based classes are where Constance is in her prime, so hurry along in acquiring Fiendish Blow, with affiliates that offer double black magic like Grammarian Warlock, putting the biggest smile on her exquisite anatomy, and in the case of the latter, granting much needed bow avoid. However, Dark Knight is also a decent offering thanks to Black Tome Fair, and better yet, Valkyrie grants Constance additional range for more ideal engagements, and Uncanny Blow will ensure she'll never miss a bolting barrage. Faith also has its perks, and due to Constance's ability to learn Abraxas, I would suggest Holy Knight in this particular context, and on the physical side of things, War Cleric is pretty solid, but be sure to have Aura Knuckles at the ready. Swordplay does well for Constance as her combat arts are very powerful, plus most sword classes are rather fast, as Mortal Savant is her ideal station when going the way of the Samurai. The Trickster is great as well. Just about every other physical class I assess to range from to outright bad. However, some do have skills that Constance may benefit from, such as Wrath to allow for some insane magical mayhem, hit plus 20 for greater accuracy, certain defiance skills for very hazardous yet potent engagements, plus Vantage can be staggering given Constance's ability to dispatch
The enemy!
And going down the Dancer route is always useful, especially for Sword Avoid, though personally I prefer for Constance to focus on damage as opposed to support. In the end, next to Lysithea, Lady Nouvelle is quite possibly Fodlan's most powerful magic user, though unfortunately rather extreme regarding performance, with poor values outside of her arcane blood and unable to function efficiently as most classes that aren't of an enchanted disposition, but is still a brilliant scholar that represents much of what I love about Three Houses, as she's been through some of the worst times and will continue to suffer on her path to glory, but no matter how hard life becomes, she'll never give in, and by holding on to that resolve and belief in herself, she can achieve anything, and the way she's able to bring out the best in others while through them becoming the ideal version of herself and stay motivated is a concept I resonate with very, deeply, and while I'll happily reach into the darkness and hold on to the most beautiful light at the end of the tunnel, which is why she takes the #1 spot as my favourite member of the Ashen Wolves from Fire Emblem THREE-Houses. This has been BlazingKnight. I wish you all a great night, take care, and I'm glad that Fire Emblem's relationship with DLC continues to prosper, and now all that's left is to discover who among the Golden Deer represent the absolute best of what the Alliance has to offer. Thank you all for watching today. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you thought in the comments and what are some of your favourite members of the Ashen Wolves or the DLC characters in general. I'd love to hear all your opinions about each of them. And a very big thank you to DigitalDreams for providing the voice of Happy throughout this video. You did an absolutely fantastic job. Thank you ever so much. Please be sure to give this video a like and subscribe too. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Discord and Amino, Twitch where I live stream 6 times a week, and I would very much appreciate it if you donated to my Patreon to help make these videos possible and receive some additional bonuses for doing so. And of course, I'd like to say an absolutely humongous thank you to all my patrons who've helped support this channel all this time, make these videos possible, and just been the absolute most wonderful set of people in the world. Because all of you know that this video went through the worst kind of production hell. It was meant to come out, I think, in like not long after Blue Light or Church of Seros, one of the two, back in 2021, and it's 2023 now. Sorry that I went through that moment of just having no passion to do the video. But I'm glad you all stuck by me, all understood me, and I'm hoping that, what I delivered was the best outcome and you all really enjoyed it. You're all amazing. I thank you all so much just how understanding you are with how things are, with how my schedule can be, like how long videos take, and just how much you're all behind me with every step of the way, how much you appreciate, all the little bits of feedback, and how much I appreciate everything you do to help the channel, just to gauge the community, and how much more bright and joyful you make my life. I really do all love you so much, and thank you, thank you. Thank you. And I would like to say a very special thank you to Wolffox, Twisted Scarecrow, SpeckyX3, Lucina21, K-Dog, Jeremy Redinger, VC Videos 100, Starship 9, Midnight Castle, Maggieful, Fahrenheit 392, Daniel Hodgson, and Zenny Dragon. Thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. I love you all so much. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you all next time.